Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday, November 20, and yes, we are live from Den Bosch. It's CIO TV. Let me first explain, we are doing an English version today. Yes, no subscription, no undertitling. No, we are going to do a one take live in English. But let me start to introduce our co-host Hotze to have a fair discussion about what is the program all about today.
Hi, Rob.
Hotz, good morning.
Can you see me? Because I can't see you.
Yes, I can see you, and it's not loud and clear, but visually clear. Good morning,
Okay,
Hotz.
that's great. So
you still have your sniffje? Huh?
Yes, I'm still not 100%, so we thought, well, it's better to work from home. I hope it'll be better next week, but I'm still not 100%.
Yep.
Well, we can work this way as well. So everything goes just like it always goes. Only we do it online. Today we have a great team. We are going to talk about architecture for growth. Architecture is very much intertwined with growth. Growth, on one hand, is a luxury, of course, but it also brings a lot of challenges, things of requirements about scalability, flexibility, reliability, of course, and also financial aspects. So growth comes with all that. And I think architecture is very closely related, linked to this challenge. And it's a hard condition to grow without running into limitations later on. And I think the interesting part is that there are many different views on architecture. So you can take the subject in very different ways. Like, are you going for a native cloud platform as a service? Are you developing within microservices architecture? Are you standardizing on data or on large applications or on APIs and so forth and so further? So I think today we can get different insights on this topic from both PostNL and Picnic, whose CIOs are in the running for the CIO of the Year award. I think it will be very interesting.
Right, thanks. And of course, when I'm correct, you will do the conclusion and the sharp analysis in the end of the session.
I'll try. We have a lot of very smart and bright guests today in the studio. I hope I can match that level, but I will try.
Yeah, you will make chocolate out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Hot.
Thank
See you later.
All right, bye.
All right, dear ladies and gentlemen, to start the dynamics, let's please look to a first Moody. Marcel, good morning.
Good morning.
Marcel, CEO, PostNL. I think interesting to see the dynamics. But if I translate it to your business dynamics within PostNL, what are your biggest challenges today?
I think the biggest challenge is to every day to do what we have promised towards our customers. And if you look into the perspective of information technology, is also that we make that promise and that we deliver to that promise. And I think that the information flow and the process flow is more and more intertwined, and that takes a lot of challenge.
Right. And if you take that in the context of your role as CEO and your team, with all your sub-CEOs and your IT team?
I think if you look into our perspective in our team, then of course it's always important that it's running. That still is the case. So 100% uptime is viable towards our business, so we cannot miss a minute. And that takes a lot of challenges. But also the speed of change is increasing and increasing. So we are not only developing towards 100% availability, but also to increase our speed of change immensely. That's the second one, but I think the most important part is to think about the business model way forward, how we can adapt to that, and how we can still be able to build the business model of the future.
Right. If you look to the fact that it seems that PostNL is getting much more to a logistic tech company, right? So technology will probably be one of the pillars. Explain, is that needed? Is that sense of urgency? Is that future? Is that...
I think it's necessary. And what we have done is in the past time, we have developed a lot of algorithms and software, etc. with partners. We still are doing that in a broad sense. But if you look into our specific logistics part, then you see that especially in the logistics, we need to scale up and to adapt faster and faster to make change more part of our business. And if you look into the commerce side, so our connections with the customers and also the systems at the back of us, HR and finance, that can be more like SaaS platforms. But if you look into the core of our business, logistics, we really want to be ahead of the game. And so we also think that we should have an engineering capability at that part, not only with partners, but also with our own engineers.
Right. So let me also introduce Daniel Gebler, the CTO of Picnic. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Rob.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. And not only because you're a nominee for CEO of the Year award, as Marcel also is, but if you look to what Marcel just explained and you put it in your context of Picnic.
So the challenges are looking very similar in the Picnic context. So obviously having operational excellence, technology excellence, delivering kind of very high uptimes, always on time, always completeness, etc. So this is obviously one angle which is very challenging, and this is something what we focus on. A second angle, and this is probably very specific to a scale up to an organization that is growing super fast, is that you have a healthy split between an effort that you put in running your operation and an effort that you put in actually building new business lines, building new innovations, and keeping and maintaining also this kind of innovation edge. Because this is something which, if you're growing along the line, becomes harder and harder. And many organizations are basically ending up in a situation where they put a large amount of effort in just maintaining the status quo and the operational excellence.
Yeah. If you really, as Picnic, position yourselves as a tech company in heart, yeah, or by heart. So what is the difference, the true difference versus the non-tech company, so to speak?
If I would quote Mark Andreessen, then what he was saying already 2011 is that software is eating the world. And in essence, in 2020, every company is a tech company, one or the other way. It's either already fully tech or is converging towards tech. But the interesting angle is, how far are you in this kind of journey? Are you using technology or are you building technology? Are you using low code or do you actually also own the entire full stack? Are you more software focused or are you already data focused? And the most important angle and the most important architectural element that we have built is that we are putting data central to everything, how we design systems, how we design our operation, and build a feedback loop from data back to our operations. So what it means in practical terms is that today's operation feeds back in the nightly learning processes with machine learning and improves operation for tomorrow. So therefore, without software change, we have a better operation tomorrow just by more operation today. Right. And that is a key architectural angle that is probably important for tech companies.
Right. I need to switch over now to Marcel. First response on that. You understand in terms of the principles that it is a different approach.
Yeah, Fuller, I think if you look into what is automation, that is systems which generate data. If you look into digitalization, then it's the basis is data, and then you can build up algorithms upon your data which steer the process. So digitalization is the next step, but you can only achieve digitalization by having data at the core place in your architecture. And if you cannot detach the data from your systems, then out of perspective of digitalization, you have a big issue.
Yep.
Well, obviously, that is exactly the angle where data plays a role. But I think an essential element is that you have data governance also set up in a way that you can scale with all the data elements that you're doing. And that means, on the one hand, collecting more data with more operations in more countries, more deliveries, etc., but also thinking along kind of new dimensions of data, new data points that you collect that actually indicate and hint new business operations. So for us, for instance, we started to operate from a Monday till Saturday operation. And what we saw in data is that there is a pretty likely demand also from customers for a Sunday operation. And then we actually dig deeper. And then we made surveys, then we asked customers, and then we actually started operation on Sunday, and that is by now, one of the most popular delivery days in Picnic.
Right. Interesting. Let me hand over to also a third guest in the studio, Michiel van Vlimmeren. If I tell it right, it's SVP and General Manager in the Netherlands for Salesforce.
A lot of nice titles.
It's a lot of titles, so that brings up responsibility besides the bucks, so to speak. But recognize the dynamics of the two gentlemen?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, in the end, I mean, especially in these days, it's all about, I mean, putting your customer in the center of everything you do. So, and then you guys both agree to the fact that data needs to be the starting point in the way you think about your architecture. But then it also comes down to really understanding what you try to understand. So asking the right questions, I would say today, I mean, is the core of everything. So it's not about collecting or dealing with data. It's about making sure that you ask the right questions. And actually, I mean, if I look at our role in this, it does require that you take a longer term perspective. Because for today, I mean, it's probably easy also for you guys, I mean, what you would try to understand and how you want to deal with the current situation. But especially, I mean, where you look at the role you want to play going into the future, it requires a completely different way of thinking and already anticipating on how your business model will develop, where innovation will come from, and that you need to translate then into your architecture and making sure that you ask the right questions so that you can actually build that clear data strategy.
Right. So in the end, it's all about deploy and exploit. Marcel?
Yeah, it's not only deploy and exploit, but I think also to see where your business model is heading way forward. And I think that you have to look at the context of the business. And if you look in our part, I can now talk about my business, which is logistics. If you look into logistics, then there are a lot of new players. And if you want to get along with those new players, to work with them, or to compete with them, you need to think about how will you do that towards the future, right. and that is posing the right questions into the context of your company.
Right. Yeah. If I may bring that to my fourth guest in this broadcast, that is Nick Smaling, principal within BCG, Boston Consulting Group. Do you recognize if I just express the inlines and the outlines here?
Yeah, definitely.
From a global perspective, as you're doing?
Definitely. I think the common denominator that I see between the two gentlemen is that they're both in charge of companies that have to transport vast amount of goods to the entire country, and doing that in a plannable and in an efficient manner. And just throwing more resources at that problem, that is something that does not really work in a business that is marginal. So the way to solve it, and that's also what I heard today, is through data-driven leadership. And I think we have here true really data-driven leaders that have to use data for, on the one hand side, improving logistics in warehouses, so everything on packaging, pre-packaging, operations, but also in making sure that these goods are distributed across the country, so solving your traditional vehicle routing problem, but then on steroids.
Right. If I take that, Marcel, that IT and technology plays a huge role in the ambition to go forward with the PostNL. What does it mean for yourself in your role?
For my role, it means that we have to think about new roles within the organization, in our tech organization. So that means for me also to study that and to look at other models to see how other companies are doing that. We are looking more and more towards digital natives, how they are doing it and what kind of aspects we need to take over and to implement it ourselves. We have to rethink also that our architectural role will change, not only towards the business, but also towards the solutions. So that's two ways, out of strategic perspective, but also out of fundamental engineering perspective. And I think that you are becoming more and more connected, of course, into the business lines with IT, which we already have done. But you see a complete fade away of IT to see it is fading away into the business. So that changes your role towards a more exact role.
Right. If I may ask, Michiel, if you take this in the context of your role or your relationship or your partnerships, both with Picnic, but in this case PostNL, what does it mean for your development?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think if you look back in time, I think Marcel, PostNL, Salesforce started working together in 2013. It was
13, I think, yeah.
And I wasn't there with Salesforce back then, but I think if you look back at what made you decide to go for Salesforce was completely different than the role that you expect from Salesforce today. I mean, besides, let's say, providing technology, I think you also expect us to bring in use cases and to help you actually creating that longer term perspective, creating those or leveraging those best practices. Actually, as you also said, I mean, looking at what's happening in the marketplace and then translating that into the use of technology to support your business model going forward. So, I mean, it does take a longer term perspective and not just, I mean, focus on where you're today and how technology can provide value today.
But does that mean, Marcel, that let's say from the early stage, those are the guys from the CRM, right? But today, you expect more from those vendors like Salesforce, like you work with other.
Already in 2013, it was not just a CRM decision. There was a strategic perspective behind it, and we had a lot of customer databases within the company, and our aim was to become more customer-centered, to become a more customer-centered thinking company. So Salesforce played a key role in combining all those customer aspects, but also the processes. But the second thing we said is we do not want to lose time about thinking in what kind of CRM processes are the best. We just buy them from the market. That's why we selected it. And the next thing we considered out of that aspect is to see whether we can get the data out and to reverse it. And what we also said is that if you look into Salesforce as a company, then we expected at that moment that Salesforce would develop itself the fastest in the marketplace in commercial processes and also in commercial thinking and also in marketing automation. And until now, they have done that.
Mm-hmm. Right. If I switch to Daniel, so what was your starting point in regards to that customer centricity?
Well, customer centricity, we started Picnic 2015, so we have very early on put the customer centric in our journey. And that meant for us already at the early stage before we went live, putting the customer needs and understanding what the customer expects from an online grocery so central that we came up with a new business model that basically was different and didn't exist in the market. But that also along the journey kept central of what do customers expect at the next stages. So we have also then started new services like, for instance, a parcel return service, like new payment methods, etc., which is only the result of putting a customer need and customer centricity central. And that is also one of the key driving factors of the way how we will develop Picnic further. Instead of actually looking to other competitors or kind of other market entrants, we are focusing in what does the customer want tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and next year.
Right. Well, let's look to Picnic. Yeah, I think that's a nice moody, so to speak.
Here we go.
Picnic, huge ambition, huge growth. Tell me, how do you going to maintain that growth in terms then of that that secret behind your scalability, so to speak?
So the topic for this session today is architecture, and architecture is actually, so one of the key insights that we had early on is that strategy in a business is effectively technical architecture, and therefore we have set up our architecture in a way that it becomes scalable from day one. So therefore, obviously applying the kind of the basic principles like a cloud deployment and microservices and everything what we are talking about here. But there is a second angle. If you're moving through different kind of scale levels with every kind of 10x growth, you will realize that an architecture leads to or has a kind of a limitation. And that means also that we need to think about an evolutionary architecture. So if you move to the next architectural principle, that you don't have to refactor and re-implement everything, but that you can also evolve your existing architectures. And therefore, we are now at the level where we do event sourcing and reactive programming and everything what you know as a kind of the next stage of architectures. And that allows us basically to go also through phases like the Corona time, where we have seen kind of 10x, 20x, 50x time of demand on a single day than what we have seen earlier without really a major change on the architecture.
If I may, Nick, is this the right move, the smart move in a fast-growing company?
Yeah, I think so. And I think setting yourself up for scalability is, I think, the key thing that we need to do. And I think the topic of also today is, I think, what is the use of cloud? And I think you cannot imagine an architecture without the use of cloud anymore. And towards the point that Marcel was rightfully making, you see that SaaS is often being used for environments where you think somebody else can do it better than yourself. But IaaS and PaaS solutions are more where you need your own development capacity and capabilities, as you believe there you can outperform the market, or it's so essential for your business model in order to do so. I think leaders are able to manage that multiple clouds all together, but also being so scalable and so modular that the moment you see that somebody else is actually better in you than doing that you can then shift in other components to scale further.
Right. Marcel, in September recently we had that CEO and CDO Insights conference, and you elaborated on the relationship between enterprise architecture and the business strategy. Can you explain, please?
If you look into your business strategy, then it's very important that you see what kind of business elements have to be reflected by the enterprise architecture. And that's not so easy always, as you have to see what kind of business strategy you will have in 5 years. And at what kind of moments will your business decouple in functionality. And I think there are certain elements you need to take into account. That's the context of your company. How is the market changing? What kind of digital elements do you have within your business? And if you look into our business, for example, we are thinking about digital twin on every aspect which is moving. We are following everything which is moving, like road containers, like parcels, like cars. So you need to embed all that kind of fundamentals into your enterprise architecture. Like we have implemented event management, but that's not for one kind of event, but that's a kind of a generic platform. So we built generic platforms in the enterprise architecture, which after that can be used by certain business aspects. And by making the translation between business architecture, enterprise architecture, and eventually in your technology, then you can make your business adaptable, and also you can sustain it and you can help it to grow.
Right. And if you take that in the context of what Michiel earlier stated, from a long-term perspective, mid and long-term planning, now you suddenly come to a short-term differences. Is then the keyword agile, or is then different things?
I think way of working is essentially also in that aspect. So you need to think about your business strategy. You have to think about your digital elements in your business strategy, whether it is platforming, whether it is digital twin or whatever. Then you have to think about a technology which hits your context and your business. In our aspect, that's mostly artificial intelligence, but also robotization. So you have to decouple your processes on the working floor that you can use robotics. And where can you use it? You cannot use it everywhere. And then you have to think also about the way of working. And in the way of working, agile, of course, is normal now. We are now in the move towards thinking more about customer journeys, which Daniel also hit it as an aspect. And we are in that transition. We have it not in all our company, but we will transform towards that in the next coming 2 years. So the way of working and also the leadership about autonomous teams is much of importance. So that completely scale of all those aspects are being reflected by your enterprise architecture. And if those aspects are not reflected in your enterprise architecture, your business cannot be adaptable enough.
No. I know that Daniel has a slightly different approach in this, right?
Well, I'm not sure if it's really completely different, but it's maybe just building up on what Marcel was saying. I think the first key observation, if you design an organization and if you grow an organization, is that there is Conway's law. And the Conway's law means essentially in the way how you organize your business, the system will follow over time. So which means that if you want to make an agile transformation, or if you want to actually run a kind of autonomous teams, or if you want to have a microservice architecture, then you need to first build autonomous teams that build this kind of microservices around it. However, that is only a starting point. So therefore, a long-term strategy is something which is very, very hard to realize if you don't know exactly where you will be in 3 or 5 years' time. If I look into a kind of where we have been 5 years ago with Picnic, we could not have even imagined where we are now. So therefore, it is unlikely that we can really put a precise target for where we want to be in 5 years' time. So our approach is very simple. We have a clear vision and an ambition where we want to be on the long term, and then we set up an agile teams, agile organization, where we can work on a weekly basis in an agile way, step by step towards the ultimate goal. And we are only going for initiatives where we can be number one in the end. So therefore, everything where we can be really become the champion in a category, that's something what we are working on. Otherwise, we will simply not go for those kind of initiatives.
Is that the same in the principle you have chosen, build and buy?
And this is, we have chosen very early on. I have made a decision of what do we buy and what do we build. A large part of our tech stack we have built ourselves. But this is an ongoing decision. So this is not just a one-off decision, then you have a 5-year plan and implement this. This is something where we, on a regular basis, typically on a quarterly basis, reviewing what do we move in and what do we, again, source out. An example is WhatsApp is a very, very important support channel for us. In 2015, there has been no significant solution in the WhatsApp market to actually provide WhatsApp customer service. So therefore, we built it ourselves. Now in 2020, that is something what is de facto commoditized. So therefore, we outsource this and have a provider for this. And therefore, our tech stack is basically a permanent, ongoing switch between insourcing and outsourcing.
Yep. I also had the pleasure to have a couple of talks with Joris, of course. And he explained me saying, we better build if we cannot buy, because also of the liability to our customers in the end, in terms of the end experience. So if it's not good enough, we are just building it ourselves.
It's absolutely true. And there's one additional element. If you buy from the market, there is a kind of a commoditization element that you can just become as good as the best solution on the market. If you want to go beyond this, if you want to use really in a significant way data and the data feedback loops, then you need to build at least a large part of your tech stack yourself. There's no way around it.
Right. Marcel, you stated around the summer period, PostNL, we need 150 software engineers. Please solicitate.
Yeah.
That's a total different approach from going from postware to the software, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we have started that, and we are now in the midst of doing it. The pace is, we want to get to 150, but we have said for the first aim is to have around 35 to 50 in 2021. So we are now at, I think, 12 or 13 nowadays, and a big pipeline. So we are heading there. And we're starting to with the lead technology people to get them in, and after that we will get the engineers. So step by step, and it's rather successful. And it changes also the fabric of our company, and also of the tech company, because they are different, they think different. We have to think to have solution architectures in-house. We had that always outsourced. And next to that, our language, we are more or less a Dutch company. our language is also now changing into English. So that's also a big change for some of us, not for everyone, but we also still have documentation in Dutch. So we have to get rid of that year by year and step by step, but we will get used to that.
Yep. And that's also good for TV programs like this. So the English is already incorporated.
I practiced this morning already. Yeah, no problem.
Michiel, I need to ask you this. If I look to the importance of cloud platforms, so the massive platforms arising, are they, in terms of importance, are they getting bigger? So how do you see that?
Yeah, I think there's two elements to this. I mean, if there's one thing clear, then it's the need for scalability, and I heard it from you, Marcel, and from you, Daniel. It's the need for time to market. There's the need for being adaptive enough. So I think those things really are supported by those platforms. On the other hand, you also need to make sure that it's open enough, so that, I mean, there's not the lock-in, because, I mean, standardization, using all the use cases, all the experiences behind it, I mean, is a good thing. But then on the other hand, you also need to be able to be innovative on your own. So I think those two things need to come together. So leverage, let's say, the platforms, leverage everything that's in there, where it goes for time to market, speed, scalability, all the experience that's in there. But then on the other hand, also make sure that it's open, so to make sure that it gets your flavor and it's built around your customer experience that you want to achieve, or your logistic process that you want to build.
It's funny that you mention in your line the word lock-in from out of yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, I truly believe in what I just said. So, I mean, leveraging, I mean, best practices, experiences, I mean, is a great thing. But then again, like Daniel also stated, I mean, you need to be able to build it around what makes you picnic in your case. So you need to be able to scale it towards a specific solution with specific values around your company. So the two really come together, I think.
Right. Maybe just to enlighten on that for the viewers, last year there have been a couple of news items in some, let's say, daily newspapers about the vendors and lock-ins and all those kind of things within the software industry. What happened is that the association of the CIO Platform Netherlands at the one side, and also the association of what we call the vendors, the suppliers, arranged in the association of NL Digital, or Digital NL Digital. They find each other as a steering group, and they are trying to work out those kind of discussions. How can we leverage that together? And because also within the whole cloud strategy, when you go from licenses to subscription models, we need to change and adapt. And I think that's in good order to say that there's a good firm discussion between supply and demand at this stage, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean,
great. Nick, if I may pass over, that cloud and especially the platform, is that the way to go?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. I cannot imagine an architecture anymore where cloud does not have a right to play. I do think that we should remain a bit critical on where to use cloud for, because everybody now wants to have a bit of cloud everywhere. So I think you really need to check, do I use this for because somebody else does it better than myself? Do I do it for risk purposes, for scalability purposes? But most importantly, the ability to quickly swap in and out capabilities the moment you see something in the market, or you believe you need to gain competitive advantage. I think that's really critical in the use of cloud.
Yep. Is Daniel, is multi-cloud the magic word?
So multi-cloud is one possible approach, but I think the more important question to look into is, do you have an architecture that allows you to take the best of breed from different kind of cloud providers? So there are cloud providers that are very, very strong on the data and the AI and ML angle, and there are data providers, cloud providers that are very, very strong on a security side and more on the scalability angles, and other cloud providers have other strengths. So therefore, I strongly believe that an architecture needs to include a multi-cloud elements on the one hand, but needs to go even a step further, where it also considers on-premise for the elements that need to be still on-premise as an additional element. To give you an example, we are building now this robotized warehouse where you have robots going through a warehouse that need sub-millisecond control. In such an environment, you simply can't work with a cloud solution that has a latency of 3 to 5 milliseconds or higher. So therefore, you have on-prem elements. And if you think this a little bit further, then you come to an architecture where you can dynamically deploy something on-prem or in one cloud or the other cloud on the one hand. On the other hand, you also need to think about your data strategy and data governance. What is basically on-prem and what is in the cloud? And then you get into the field of AI on-chip type of technologies, which is very exciting. And this is basically the opener for autonomous driving, for autonomous drones, and all those kind of technologies that will play a very important role in the coming years.
And if I look to this, Nick, in terms of industries and maturity, are we mature enough in these developments?
Yeah, that's an interesting question that you asked that, Rob. I think we have definitely two leaders here today in the circle here that are ahead of the cloud. So ahead of the cloud, just to use a nice analogy there.
Ahead of the group and ahead of the cloud. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
But yeah, so I think that's definitely the case. But we do see, if we compare the results in our yearly survey, where we yearly check not only companies in the Netherlands but also in Europe and across the globe, that we, as the Netherlands, are really not really getting ahead of the curve, so to say, but that we are more kind of equal and we are growing a bit with the pace. So we are not making step changes, or at least we are not seeing step changes in the Dutch market as a whole. But I think there are definitely exceptions that are really growing very fast.
Right. BCG has been, for the past 15 years, part of the process within the nominee of CEO of the Year. And of course also this year. So what is the approach you've taken, and can you enlighten us a little on those two fine nominees?
Yeah, I will definitely do that. To start off, we use our Digital Acceleration Index to check around 50 criteria of digitization in a company. And we do that by interviewing or surveying the CIO, their team, but also the business, because we believe it is important to have an impact on the business as IT. And we do that first in a survey, and then the ones that are selected because of their scores, we also do the interviews to check a bit on, it's a self-survey or self-assessment, if these numbers really make sense to the benchmark that we did.
A kind of a 360, so to speak.
It's a kind of a 360 indeed. But I think for now important to say that we won't disclose any numbers right now, because this is really for the executive itself. So it provides very insightful insights, but we don't want to have that on air now already. It's really for the person itself. What we have done for today is look towards the industry, so to provide an industry perspective for parcel and logistics, and I think also for technology. We've not compared Daniel in this case with groceries, but really with technology. As he also says, I want to be a tech company, so then we of course arrange that. And I want to share one element that I see really as a differentiating capability for Daniel and also for Marcel.
All right. So that means that you have a couple of slides prepared, so to speak. All right. Can we see the first one?
All right. This is indeed the first one. And what you see now currently on the page are teams that are really reshaping the retail sector. And that is really throughout the entire value chain. So that is from understanding who I am as a customer towards delivering something at my doorstep. And the common denominator in this value chain is the use of data. And just to make it a little bit practical, it means that companies that do that right know who I am, know that I'm a Dutch guy that loves cheese and broodje hagelslag, and really making sure that you do personalization and advertisement for me. On the other side, it means using data to understand what is the situation on the roads, what is the impact of the weather on delivery. To an extent, I think that you, Daniel, can show 20-minute time slots on the day where you do delivery. And having that in mind, that's super nice that you can use data to come up with such individual, personalized and specialized delivery dates for me as a person. So that are the trends that we see. Maybe moving on to the next, which is one of the elements that we have seen as a common denominator for companies that do that really successfully. And that's actually the use of Agile. I think Daniel already referred to it, and we do see that Daniel and his company really use Agile to the next level. And that means not only putting people in squads or in chapters, but really living an agile philosophy and a design philosophy. And that has everything to do with the way how you use technology, the way how you would like to scale, the way that you can make rapid decisions and not making 5-year strategic plans, but doing it iteratively. So I think that is one of the elements that really popped out in the survey with Daniel, that he uses agile to as best in class.
And if you put that in conjunction with the benchmark,
Yeah.
so there are over 6,000 companies within the BCG benchmark, and it's hard to say. You explained already. How do you look to Picnic from a technology company or a grocery company or X or Y?
Yeah.
So, if you look to that benchmark, how does he score in versus average?
I think on both dimensions. So if you compare it to groceries or to retail, and if you compare it to technology, definitely far ahead of the curve. Yeah.
Right. And you already told about the way agile is within the veins, so to speak.
Yeah.
Major trends. If you look in these industries, what can you foresee as the next?
Yeah. Good question. I think where agile started with, I think a decade or even further ago, if you really look back to the Agile Manifest, it was really a software delivery methodology, mainly used in IT. Taking in mind that whatever you build, you also have to run it. So putting developers and testers together in one team, I think that was the first wave of agile. And to fully capture benefits of using agile, you need to make sure it also brings business and IT closer together. And that's what we in BCG call agile at scale. So to really make sure business and IT are integrated in one team. If you look towards the next leap of agile, you see that also commercial functions, so sales and marketing are also part of that same teams. And that's what we see as one of the next trends within agile.
Yeah. Right. Daniel, is he right?
It's very nice to see that in interviews that we could convey the message, and that you also could that it's recognized that we have not only gone through the agile transformation, but that we actually also have set up agile not only on the engineering, on the tech side, but also on the business side. That in essence, every kind of team that we are building is always fully cross-functional and runs always in an agile way. What is maybe interesting to mention here is that maintaining such an agile way was is also a challenge by itself, because we have started with garage-like setup in 2015, and we are now 7,000 people. So that is basically went through a kind of very, very different, massive transformation stages in every kind of 6 to 12 month period. There's one additional thing, and I think this is something what we also discussed earlier in the interviews, is that in the way how we run innovation is not always fun and games. Innovation is something, if you want to be really successful at scale, you need to be an extremely disciplined in the way how you run innovation. So therefore, on the one hand, you need to be brutally honest, but you need to also be very, very, very much supportive. And you need to be open for experiments, but on the other hand, you need to be disciplined in execution. And you need to also run it in a way that you always have a kind of a feedback loop, that you can run as much as possible experiments every single week.
If I take that back, Nick, is that a thing what worries, that you see there's now close boundaries between how do you optimize or sub-optimize, how do you transform and go into transformations, and how do you really use innovation?
Yeah, and I think that comes back to the point that I heard Daniel saying before. Balancing what amount of my budget I can put in running my organization versus changing my organization is a very fine balance, because you want to, and especially in the business where these two executives sit, you have to maintain 100% uptime. You have to maintain delivery or leverfähigkeit, to kind of also use the native language of Daniel. Because if you cannot do that anymore, I think you are quickly being run away by your competitors. So putting sufficient effort on run, very important to remain your customers. But on the other side, there is so much market pressure, new entrants that also want to do this. So you have to also continue to innovate. And balancing that run and changing your organization is key to get this right.
Right. Well, let's go to the world of Marcel.
Yeah. Also there we have a nice slide which you would like to share, which are the themes that we see reshaping the parcel and logistics sector. And if we go from left to right, we see the first part, that's the decline in mails. So less Christmas cards that are being shared across, but much more digital communication. And due to the growth of e-commerce, a really accelerated growth of parcel. Then the next two trends that you see have to do with digitization. Digitization in delivery. So how can we make sure we do delivery in a new way? And digitization in operations. So how do I make sure that my warehouses are fully digitized? And the final one is also interesting to mention. That's the importance of sustainability. So I live in Utrecht, and in Utrecht there are some cars are even not allowed to be there anymore. So you also have to think through on how do you rethink your delivery model, purely based on cars, much more towards electric vehicles or other ways how you can do delivery.
Right.
So then we have also looked at to Marcel and his organization, also there to start off definitely ahead of the curve, ahead of the industry. And the one thing that really jumped out at Marcel is that he really is an executive that has built an organization while you still can remain central steering, but also having decentralized involvement in the business. So having business CIOs sitting in all the elements, so really getting close to the business. And I heard it already in the discussions before. Marcel was saying it's important that the digital is part of the business strategy, that I'm part of my business strategy. So I think that setup is really good. And the way how he uses digital and data platforms is, I think, also definitely something that others can learn a lot from. Final point to make, I think PostNL, when I was still a young guy, was called Koninklijke PTT, and that was a very sentimental way of looking at things. But if 200 years of history makes it sentimental, 200 years of legacy can sound detrimental. So I think realizing that type of change in such of a legacy environment, I would say I would take my hat off for that.
That means chapeau.
Chapeau.
Chapeau, right. First respond on this, I guess, Marcel.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. This is damn polite again. All right.
No, I think it's indeed, of course, you have a lot of legacy. If you have such an old company with also a product and service model, which is very diverse out of all kind of business requests from the past. And of course, today you're also building the legacy of tomorrow, so that will be part. So killing legacy, take legacy out, not only your IT, but also your service model is key of our transition towards the future, because if you want to really digitalize, you have to simplify your business model. And that's what we are seeking for, to see where we can take out certain kind of services which are not taken with a lot of customers, and to make our model more simple so we can digitalize even more. And that's the big transition. And that takes a lot of effort.
Yeah. If I look back to your findings, how hard is it? Because now the aspect of organization, right, and also within the continuous developments and changing, right?
Yeah.
So how hard for you was to create that? Because I think that also comes in parallel with the governance, of course, right? Mm-hmm. This is a major change. Has been a major change, right?
Yeah, what we have done is some things are too important to decentralize. So if you look at, for example, in master data management, or if you look into cybersecurity, compliancy, those kind of aspects, they are too important to so there we have a strict central steering. But if you look into business aspects and to functionalities we need to deliver for the business lines, where we have 3 big business lines and a 4th one who is doing the channels, then they need to be part of that business. So, and you have to let that go, because they are more part of that business unit. And it's much more important that we, as I always say to my IT directors, it's more important that the business line directors like you than that I like you. So if you really have to, but if you really step out of the boundaries on the aspects we have centralized, then we need to have contact.
Right. Michiel, if you look to those 2 fine gentlemen, but also, of course, with to respect to also the feedback of Nick, is this to really, I would nearly say showcases, but I think the real cases of where the conversations are going within your customers?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I think it starts with the whole the way of thinking. I mean, putting the customer at the center of everything, and then designing, let's say, everything that goes along associated to that. And I think that's key. And it all starts with having a clear view on who you want to be, and then translating that into what drives your business not only today but also going forward. And then if you would ask me how to translate that into a data strategy, that's also where it starts, right? So it's not about, I mean, technology itself. It's about being able to identify who you want to be and how you want to drive, let's say, that profile going forward, and what valuable insights you need to be able to measure if you're getting there on those main goals. So, and I mean, from my perspective, if I look at, I mean, we're post-analysts today, how you guys are transforming, especially given the current times. If you look at the leading position that Picnic is taking, it clearly shows that they have a very great view on who they want to be and how they leverage, let's say, technology to get there. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, Nick, if I may ask you, customers and data are for both companies very important.
Yeah.
Where do you see the similarities?
I think maybe on two areas. I think on the part on being customer centricity at the heart of your company. So making sure that your app is reachable to 6 million people and that I can do the customization in my app on where I would like to have my parcels delivered. I think that's great. I think Daniel, similar, that I can do a delivery of a specificity of 1 hour and even a 20-minute delivery deadline that I then get on the day of delivery. I think really putting customer centricity at the heart and using data to know me, but also to improve your operation and your delivery. That's, I think, what I see both executives do really well.
Yeah. Right. And if you take that then in the context of, you heard Daniel earlier speak about AI and robotics. I think within Marcel he explained why in terms of trying to get those software engineers in also from a cultural aspect, but also understanding next level. What should those two guys do for the next level, for the next stage?
So I think there are a couple of.
Or you don't want to burn your hands on that?
No, I think these gentlemen know pretty well what they have to do. But I think if I then have to give my bescheiden advies, so then I think it's making sure that you continue to use data for all of your processes and operations, making sure that you run your organization in an agile fashion so that you can continue to deliver change quickly. And thirdly, make sure that your architecture is set up in a modular way and that you can use technology to quickly shift things in and out on elements where you think that the market is better, but always keep a clear element of your development in-house where you want to be differentiating.
Right. If you go to the topic of leadership, because we need to touch that also, right? So, Nick, thank you for your feedback. Again, I think a tremendous effort is being done by the whole team behind the CEO of the Year award. So thank you very much for that. Just to clarify a little, because you now see 2 nominees, where we the previous editions we had also always 1. But me cannot count. We had 4. I thought we do 2 by 2, and suddenly agenda hits, so we needed to do 1. So in the end, it makes sure that before CEO Day, and that's upcoming Tuesday, that means that we needed to do 2 in 1 edition. That at least if you follow me still, yeah. I try to clarify.
Someone will follow you.
Yeah, very good, very good. It was fast. It was fast. It was fast. If you take that in perspective of leadership, you're a CTO. We had previous discussions within our community. We incorporated CDOs. We said CTOs. Well, I think an exponent of that is, for example, Hilke with Helpa. What makes it different, and do you think it's a good idea that we tie it up all together?
I think the trends that we are seeing over the last years is that actually the boundaries between what is a CDO, what is a CIO, what is a CTO, what is CISO, etc., are actually becoming much more fluent. And therefore, over the last years, we have seen that CDO and CIO is basically becoming one community. Going forward with actually more structural decisions on how to source in technology, how to source out technology, what do you build yourself and how do you build yourself, or do you build this with partners, will lead to the realization that you actually have only one combined technical executive role, which is then something O, which is on a technology angle, and then have a larger kind of a CTO type of office, which is capturing what is now part of a CIO, what is now part of a CTO, what is now part of a ZDO. So therefore, these are probably roles that are merging more together, simply because technology is becoming such an essential piece of business. Or let me put it more precise, technology is business and business is technology. It is just the same thing.
Right. Right. Thank you, Daniel. If you just let's peel off the onion, so to speak. If you're a CEO or CTO in a starting company or going to scale up, then what you often see is that if the operating model is changed or need to be changed, then also your technology model has to be changed. That means that you have to understand those changes, and well, seeing the movie Got a T-shirt is then handy. Is that, for example, one of the interesting elements also experience sharing of, for example, the CIOs of the more enterprise companies?
Absolutely. So there are probably two elements to it. Number one is, as a startup is growing over the time, then whoever is taking the technical leadership role needs to also evolve quite a bit through the stages. And if I look to myself, the role that I had in 2015 when Picnic was a small startup, then this was a very, very different role than what we have now. But I feel also that there is much more opportunity now that the startup community should come together with the kind of corporate or more traditional organizations to learn from each other. And this has happened already to some extent over the years, but I feel that we can even do more to learn from each other's side. So we just heard it now, there's 200 years of experience of operating a model in different kind of technology stages. And we are talking now about the digital technology, but there has been digital technology disruption also in the logistics years back, also 50 or 70 years back, there have been technology disruptions. If you start just by using a car instead of horses, etc. So these are major technology disruptions, and we will see even more. So therefore, it's important to bring basically those communities together.
Right. Thank you. If I cannot go by with having the same kind of question, Marcel, but then backwards. So how important are those young guys, those challengers?
Well, a lot of those challengers, jokery guys, take half of the market. So I think extremely important.
Yeah, they're nibbling at your business.
Yeah. And I think that is, of course, how it has always been, but it is now in an immense space. So, but what is also important is that you can see out of those startups, what they are doing very well is that they connect from the beginning technology and business. From the beginning, and that makes them faster, and that makes them also adaptable. And the one who is the most adaptable will survive and will win the game. So that is, I think, what we have to learn from them, and I think we are learning that at a fast pace, and of course with some bruises, but we are getting there. And that's why we also can learn from that kind of implementation of technology into the business.
Yep, total different approach, total different mindset. Yeah. Yeah. So it's good that this community is
certainly
right.
Yeah.
All right. Just a quick look on that, Michiel. Total different characters, total different companies,
but with the same mindset.
Right.
And I think that's what we have been discussing today, right? So I mean, putting your customer at the heart of everything, and then yes, especially the starting point is different, because what Marcel said. I mean, I think that is the truth, and you see that, I mean, where it goes for success today. So the companies that really know how to integrate, I mean, technology and business, I would almost say to the max, and adapt fast, because I mean, you can say you put customer at the center of everything, but it means that you need to be able to follow that customer at all times. And I would say that's where the success is. So I would say the mindset is the same. Starting point is different.
Right. Thanks, Michiel. As a call to action, Daniel, will you take the camera in the bookshelf and address your colleagues with the do or don't, what you think is a one-liner should be wrapping it up for today?
My advice or my wish to the CIO community would be that everybody would be more ambitious with digital transformation. I feel that the kind of digitalization of processes or just moving from on-prem to cloud is not ambitious enough. I feel that we need to take this moment in time to actually rethink business models, to reinvent ourselves, and also see if we can go beyond the pure copying of US or Chinese models, and can actually reinvent the way how technology is done in Netherlands. And I hope that we can make a contribution to the Dutch tech community here.
Great, thank you, Daniel. And of course, we will see you Tuesday live on stage, battling. It's not The Voice, but at least the stage look like The Voice. Marcel, same for you, other bookshelf, but the same, please do or don't for your colleagues, your peers.
Well, I think if you are a CIO which is in a kind of the same position as I am, then I would, I think, put data at the heart of your thinking. So decouple your data completely from your applications. That's one. But secondly, also decouple your business model into functionalities which you can combine into other business models. And secondly, try to make the move from business IT alignment to business is technology and technology is business.
Great, great. And of course, you're also, I guess, prepared already for the battle of Tuesday.
I always prepare weeks before, Rob.
Weeks before? Oh, it's a mid- and long-term planning, I hear.
I will look at Monday. Yeah.
Did I explain that we're going to do it totally different on Tuesday? Well, there's the agile part. No fun. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to Hotze. Is Hotze still here? Hey,
Yes,
Hotze.
I'm still there. Hi, Rob.
Well, the show is yours in terms of make chocolate out of this.
Yeah, een broodje hagelslag. Yes, well, I really enjoyed this conversation, Rob. I always like to hear intelligent people that have vision, that have ambitions, and well, it really, yeah, it was a great conversation, and a lot has been said already. But I think to wrap it up, we really see the battle of the front runners. So companies that not only using technology, but also build technology to be successful. And I think architecture, well, they explain it in several ways, is strategic in this. And I found it very interesting to see that companies are moving towards what they call an evolutionary architecture. So an architecture that evolves with the needs and the circumstances companies are operating within. And I think it's also good to see that this is a continuous agile process. And I think if you look at the specific elements of the architecture, you do not see that it's very dogmatic anymore. It contains elements like SaaS, like PaaS, like cloud-based microservices, for example, with also a strong emphasis on data. So data to a large extent will drive new opportunities and also new technology developments. Well, it's too much to wrap up in a few words, in a few sentences, but I think this is about it.
Right. Just a quick question. How is your sniffje today?
Well, as you can hear, I'm still a little cold, so I'm a little sore throat, but it's okay. It's okay.
All right. Well, I hope to see you at least Tuesday live in the studio. All right.
Yep.
Hotz, thanks. All right. Well, does this wrap it up? Yes. We're going to try to end this broadcast. What does it mean? I'm going to thank all my guests. Michiel, Nick, thank you for your contribution and your participation. Of course, Daniel, and of course, Marcel. And we're going to not send them away without empty hands. What does that mean? No bottle of champagne. No, they will get soup. All right. Because of our own corporate social responsibility in terms of supporting the Verspillingsfabriek, so to speak. So, you're eating soup this weekend, guys. Then you already know that.
Thanks,
Secondly, that also with this broadcast wraps it up regarding the profile of the nominees with the CEO of the Year Award within CEO TV. What does it mean? Yes, that means that they are done and they are ready for waiting to the next battle, and that will be Tuesday, November 24, as part of the CEO Day program. And you can already see magnificent statues are ready, because we think, and I would like to support the words of Daniel and also Marcel in this case, these are tech heroes, right? Let's treat them a little bit as the rock stars, because I think IT and technology is getting our economy, at least today, in the air, or still in the air, so to speak. What does it mean? Tuesday, CIO Day, virtual, exciting, Studio 21, live broadcasting, live speakers on stage, virtual speakers, one big fest, also to let the world show that from a technology point of view, we can really go beyond only video conferencing. Are we done yet? Yes, then we are done yet. So what does it mean? For now, happy weekend, stay safe and stay healthy.
Move fast and break things. Remember how good that used to sound? For a while there, it seemed like technology was the answer to everything, and that business would drive us all forward. But it's time we took a look around. All around. Not just at the rooms where we sit, or the offices where we work, or the towns where we live, but all around. And ask ourselves if maybe we've broken enough. How much longer can we continue to put the few ahead of the many? How much longer can we proceed with business as usual? Let's keep moving fast. But instead of breaking things, let's find a way to fix them. Let's bring doing well and doing good together. Let's bring CEOs and NGOs together. Let's bring equal work and equal pay together. Tech and trust. Shareholders and stakeholders. C-level and C-level. Access and success. Let's bring value and values together. The thing is, technology really does have the power to lift us all, but only if we design it for everyone. And business really can drive us all forward, but only if we agree to hold ourselves to a higher standard. It's time for a new era of business, one that works for everyone. Let's build it together. Are you with us?